And now, we've come to the portion of our show where we have to ask, what just happened? We can't believe it either, but let's take a look back at the insanity that was this week and look ahead to what will make us facepalm next week. This is What Just Happened on the Dean Ovidala Show. Take it away, Dean.
That's my turn to talk. I'm Dean Ovidala. Welcome back to the show, my friends. Friday, October 11th. We got a great show. It's What Just Happened. We look back at the breaking news that are happening right now. I mean, we're looking back at breaking news that just happened, but very happy to have three great people with me. Three. No, I'm not going to say. Not going to do the easy joke.
You looked directly at me when you did that.
We've got my friend Alex Berg. She's back, you know her from hosting on this channel all the time. You'll host.
Wait, do you have a radio show too?
She did a thing here.
Yeah, I did a special series about a deep dive into some political stuff, and from time to time I'll guest host on the network. And
she co-hosts AM to DM on BuzzFeed News, journalists covering national news, women and LGBTQ issues. Alex, good to see you again. It's been a while.
Good to see you too. It's been too long.
It has. And sitting to your left, and we apologize, is Kevin Dombrowski. Very
Hasn't
funny.
been quite long enough, Dean.
I don't know the last time we saw you. How was life, my friend?
It's good. I think it's been about a month or so.
And things are fine. How's your album? Last time you were here, you were editing it down or something? You were mixing it? You were adding the laughs?
It's fully edited.
Okay.
It's fully edited. There's been a whole factory of workers that have been fired. No, it's fully...
You're like the Trump of comedy?
I am, actually.
Left and right.
Every single person that edited has been deported. No, it's fully edited. My wife, a very talented artist, is designing the cover this week. I will get a release date. I swear to God.
What's it called? Do you have a name?
It's called High on Molly.
High on Molly.
Yes, my wife's name is Molly, by the way.
I was going to say
that's where it gets
but that's
in.
not what it's named after, though. And to the right, it's the one and only Sopan Deb, New York Times writer, comedian, knows politics, knows NBA now. You wrote some great stuff in the NBA this week. Well, no, 'cause he was a political guy. He was assigned to Trump in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I got to know you 2015. I think I met you right before you went on the road.
Well before that. You put me on one of your shows in like 2013, 2014, man.
I don't remember that.
Wow, must have been a great set.
I don't remember that.
Wow, must have been a great set.
I remember meeting you at talking to you. Asif Mandi's party for Halal in the Family. We talked.
My man,
there.
we met before that. You put me on your show before that.
That's not you.
Sopan.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Doesn't ring a bell.
All right, so we know each other for longer than I thought. Hey,
Man. Dean,
let's
can we hold on just 1 second?
Of course.
I wrote about you in my book and like putting me on the show. You don't even remember when we met?
That
He goes, that book?
I can't wait for you to get your ancestry back and realize that you guys are cousins. I can't wait for that moment.
Unless you're half Italian or Arab. I did 23. Anybody else do 23?
I did that too.
No.
You did it?
I did.
I did it.
And what did you come back?
99 point something Indian.
Wow.
Awesome.
Nothing interesting.
What about you? I think you told me. What did you do?
I am Eastern Bloc, and it also said you're lucky. No, I'm actually 51% Ashkenazi Jew, and I did not know that.
51%?
Yeah, so I actually could have gone on birthright, and I did not know.
Okay.
Which is how I'm hoping.
51%?
My parents did 23andMe, and I think my dad is like 49% Ashkenazi Jew, and I did go on birthright.
Oh, did you?
So yes.
I'm just looking for a competitive edge in the industry.
Is it too late for you to go?
It is.
Oh,
I aged
actually,
out.
yes, you did age out.
But can you get an exception because you found out too late?
It's like a toll to statute of limitations. Like we do with a lawsuit.
I've aged out of the crime statistics. No, I don't know. You can't like retroactively do it.
Not with that attitude.
I wouldn't have gone anyway because I look German, so it would have been a bad experience for everyone involved.
How about if I get money from my Palestinian cousins to raise money for you to
I
come
feel like
to
you're just
visit
trying
West
to get
Bank?
me out of the country. This feels like some sort of
There's
reverse
actually a comedy
racism.
festival they do in August there.
Oh, really?
This guy,
Kevin here is a potential gig.
This
You go,
is-
really? Oh my gosh, a spot?
Where did those sideburns come from?
you have to bring 8 people. No, they actually do.
That
It's
would
a
be
bringer
hilarious.
show.
He does
You
a
have to come
show
on the flight.
He He does a show there, and he has to bring her.
It's a bringer show.
That would be
You have
awesome.
to fly them in.
I would absolutely do
there's a
that.
Middle East. Nina, who used to work. Do you know Nina from our show?
I
oh,
told
you know
her.
Nina. She just did it. I'm not kidding. They did.
No,
it.
I know that, and you know what's so funny is Nina took my comedy class, and it was like with just like her jokes, everything about her presentation, graduation she killed, and I was like, God, I can't wait to open for you on your Netflix special because this is going to
She's
be
working hard. She's getting really
Palestinian
good.
woman.
With hijab.
Yeah.
It's dirty.
Yeah, she's
I mean,
a
it's
badass.
really like a.
Well, she did a show with Ahmed at Caroline's too, I think.
Well, I don't speak of that. I have some issues with.
What did she bump you? Is that
No, not her. No, I'm fine with her. She's my buddy.
It was
So,
a bringer.
all right, let's talk about the news of the day because there's so much breaking. And first of all, just what's your reaction to Kevin? What's your reaction to Trump? I mean, this week has been like it's been a Law and Order episode with Rudy Giuliani where we had not just impeachment, we had indictments. We had indictments of two guys who were shady-looking figures who were tied to Giuliani. Now we're finding out more that they didn't know each other just for months. They knew each other for a year, maybe years. They paid hundreds of thousands of dollars in fees to Giuliani. And then Giuliani, Matt, do we have the clip? And here's Trump asked today, is Giuliani still your lawyer? And you got to love this. Here it comes. You're going to guess.
Is Rudy Giuliani still your personal referee?
Well, I don't know. I haven't spoken to Rudy. I spoke to him yesterday briefly. He's a very good attorney, and he has been my attorney. Yeah, sure.
That's it. Not like, I don't know. Maybe like it's the other. Maybe Rudy doesn't want me anymore. Maybe I'm not big enough. That's the
but
way.
then he flip-flops right away. This is my favorite thing he does. He goes, I don't know. I haven't talked to him briefly yesterday. Like the same thing. He's like, I don't know Putin. I don't know him. We had one conversation 2 years ago. It's the greatest time of my life.
So, Alex, what do you make of just this week of actually seeing indictments of someone this close to the president? Yet for some reason, it's almost like the media is not connecting Trump with these guys in any way. They're like, oh, they
And
have
it's
their
not
own
like there's pictures of them together or anything like that.
Yes, exactly. Like, there's
Yeah.
not just a tweet for that. There's always there's a picture for this too. And Donald Trump Jr., the kid sitting there with this guy like at a small function. At some point, do you think Trump will be implicated in this?
I mean, I think that there's a few ways around this. One is like you could sit with your like conspiracy theory board behind you and connect all of these dots, and there are so many to connect at this point. But it was interesting to me that when you first asked the question, you compared this to Law and Order, which I think is actually incredibly generous and like, upcycling all of it, because these two guys reminded me more of like the guys who break in Home Alone.
The wet bandits.
Yes, exactly. And
Joe
so to me,
Pesci,
it feels
the
like
guy,
yes,
Daniel.
inevitably at some point this it'll be a clearer line to Trump, but just the fact that they had a firm called Fraud Guarantee, and that is the firm that then paid Giuliani.
When I saw that, I thought it was an Onion article.
Right.
And that's the real name. Fraud Guaranteed. And Twitter went crazy. And let me just play one more clip. This is called Everyone is Trying to Build a Wall Between Them and Rudy Giuliani. Here is Mike Pompeo. Did you guys hear Mike Pompeo earlier today? This is just classic. This is not a joke either. Here we go. Clip number 2. Mike Pompeo today asked about Giuliani.
In mid-February, you were in Warsaw, and so was Rudy Giuliani. During your time there, did you meet with Giuliani?
I don't talk about who I meet with. I went to Warsaw for a particular purpose. It was an important mission. We brought together people all across the world to take down the world's largest state sponsor of terror, the Islamic Republic of Iran. That's what I worked on that mission.
So you're not going to say whether you met with him?
So when I was in Warsaw, I had a singular focus. My focus was singularly on the work that we have done, effective work, to recover from what the Obama administration has done, which was to underwrite the world's largest state sponsor of terror. We've stopped that, and we're making real progress.
It sounds like you're not going to say.
When I was in Warsaw, we were working diligently to accomplish the mission to take down the terror regime that's inside the Islamic Republic of Iran. That's what I worked on. It was the only thing that I engaged in while I was there.
So yes, he
In
met
Warsaw.
with Giuliani. He hung out with Giuliani. You could have just said yes. But Kevin, what do you make of Warsaw? These are your people, right? You're Eastern Europe.
They are
These
my
are
people.
your
Genetically,
Yeah,
these
first
are
off.
your Dombrowski is your name. I mean,
Dombrowski is my name.
right. So talk to us. What
Were you
makes,
there?
In Warsaw,
Did you meet with Rudy when you were in Warsaw?
I had a particular set of skills in Warsaw. We sought out the world's most sought-after terrorist organization. That's all I'm going to talk about. Next question, please.
So did you meet with Rudy when you were there?
What I will say is when I was in Warsaw, Giuliani may have been there, but we didn't see each other because I had a
I have
singular
a picture
focus.
with you and a guy who looks like Rudy Giuliani in this picture having dinner, and then behind it says Warsaw.
Excuse
We're
me.
here, and you're wearing a
Excuse
shirt
me.
that says, I just went to
Excuse
Warsaw.
me, Dean, when I was in Warsaw.
That's it. Good job. Nice improv. Well, and scene. Thank you, folks. We'll be here. Sopan, what's your take? It seems like it's distanced yourself from Rudy Day.
Well, this clip reminded me of Corey Gardner. Did you see that clip?
Yes.
So Corey Gardner was asked repeatedly by several local reporters if he thought it was okay for Donald Trump to ask the higher ups in Ukraine whether otherwise you're not going to get one of the things that the White House press briefing gets to when there used to be a White House press briefing or when Donald Trump holds availabilities on the South Lawn or whatever is that he answers a question. And then he doesn't actually answer the question. He gives whatever answer he wants to give, and then the next reporter doesn't actually follow up. And it's, I think, the key to covering any White House, but this White House in particular, is asking a follow up question, and that needs to happen. The other thing, what I'm curious about, is how much the person, like, look, all four of us are plugged in a way, are checking our phones.
That's inappropriate.
No,
we're not. We're too involved, right?
Yeah, so I just wonder how the person, who, like my friends who aren't in the world, they're in the world. What I mean is they're not checking Twitter all day. They're not reading the news all day. What are they thinking about this story? Because I will tell you, my friends, if I went to them and was like, hey, have you been following, do what the latest development in the Trump Ukraine? Did you see the two associates of Rudy Giuliani were arrested? Like, what would they say?
That may be, I don't know, but that whole thing with Pompeo remind me of. We have more audio. Matt, Matt, are you there? Let's play. This is brand new. We just got this in. This is Stephen Miller being questioned about things. Here's clip number 3.
We could get no response, but we were able to reach his attorney, Nathan Thurm.
Mr. Thurm, let's be honest. We've seen your people working for pennies, making defective novelty items which at best don't work and don't provide hours of family fun, and at worst are creating serious injury.
So what are you saying?
Saying that your boss, Mr. Lee, is in effect the Mr. Big of the pirate novelty business.
No, he isn't. You're just saying that to get a higher rating on your TV show. I don't understand that. Why are you pointing the finger at other people all the time? Why don't you point the finger at yourself? Do a little more reading, maybe. Less time in court. Maybe that would be effective for you.
Pardon me for saying this, but you seem defensive.
I'm not being defensive. You're the one who's being defensive. Why is it always the other person who's being defensive? Have you ever asked yourself that? Why don't you ask yourself that?
So can you guys guess do you know where that's from?
I don't.
I think I do.
I don't
Is that
know.
the Larry Sanders Show?
Nope. That's SNL from the 1980s with Martin Short. It's a parody of 60 Minutes. It's a classic. It's one of the only thing from the 80s of SNL when Lauren wasn't there that was actually really good if you watch it. And it's the funniest part was Martin Short. It's a 60 Minutes parody where the guy keeps asking a question and Martin Short looks at the camera. He goes, it's him, right? It's not me. I'm not I'm not trying to hide anything. Well, this guy's clear. And so it reminded me of that kind of ridiculousness.
When I was at SNL in the 80s, there was...
You were a child. You were brought in.
Yeah, exactly.
So what... I don't know where this ends up, but I've got to define chutzpah, and it's the week of the high holy days, so it's a perfect time. Here's Eric Trump last night at the rally in Minnesota, literally leading a chant of lock him up about Hunter Biden. And the lack of self-awareness is beautiful that this is going on. But also there's a scary thing involved because listen to how closely he just simply says, maybe lock him up is fine. And all of a sudden a crowd in unison begins chanting that, meaning they would say anything. That's the funny part, the craziness is, the irony is him doing this. The scary part is just listen to this crowd embrace this in ways that conjure up something on the History Channel, frankly. Here's clip number 4.
How do you think Joe Biden and his, how do you think his son's feeling right now, right after embezzling a lot of money, taking a lot of money, the crookedness, right? He's not looking too good either. Yeah, maybe lock her up goes to lock him up. I don't know. It might lock him up. I don't know. I like lock her up a little bit more, but it might. Thank you. That's a good idea. I like that idea.
all you need is like, honestly, I'm going to say this because I feel it, like a swastika dropping behind them, like a big flag. I mean,
Stop looking at me when you say stuff like that.
Sorry, I was looking for you to correct me. Like it wouldn't be a swastika. It would be a Maltese phalanx or something. Like whatever it might be. But that's what I have to be honest. To get a crowd to go from, hey, that sounds interesting, to them in unison cheering that, thousands of them, that is bone chilling.
It sounded like the worst UCB class I've ever heard. Someone yelled it out. And
I've heard worse, my friend.
But I like how he was like, I like that. Maybe lock him up. Maybe that works.
Yeah.
Alex, what do you think?
Well, there were two things that jumped out at me. Is number one, this was in Representative Ilhan Omar's district, and just the line there between, the things that Trump has said that have almost encouraged violence and attacks against her, to then how quickly all the supporters jump in on this message. So there's that. And then the other thing is just that it reminds me that there are people who have such a different media diet than what I have, that they are living in just a completely different timeline, so that for them, Eric Trump can pretend that he is beyond reproach and like nothing to see here at all. And that's their version of reality, I guess.
But in reality,
it's terrifying.
But it doesn't even mean the facts. Like he could have said anything.
Yes.
I mean, it was like when Trump said, "Send her back," and the whole crowd began saying, "Send her back" about Ilhan Omar in the past. I mean, is it when you hear it, Sopan, does it trouble you? Is it alarming, or is it just what we've seen? You've been at Trump rallies. You've been at more
hundreds of them.
He's been at hundreds because he's a big time MAGA.
Why have I never seen you there?
Because Kevin opens for a lot of them now.
Dude, Matt, can we roll my tight five that I did before Eric?
He was very funny. In fact, lock him up is your 3-year punchlines.
I actually am selling merch after the show of giggles. Lock him up.
And where's Hunter Biden shirt? You got another one. Where's Hunter Biden? You're the merch.
From my experience attending Trump rallies, which is a sentence which is very odd to say, what stands out to me is that they're just the same. I started attending them in 2015. I went to hundreds of them as a campaign embed. I went to some of them during the transition, and I watch it and I'm like, oh, this is the exact same. Yeah. They're the exact same thing. It's the exact same show. It's like going to the Cellar every Friday night and watching the same set over and over again.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say that. I love the Cellar.
Yeah. I can assure you, Eston's not listening. Eston's not listening to the show. But
I was trying to segue to you to pump your album. That's what that was for.
Oh, you want to hear the same shit? Listen to my album.
There you go. Yeah, no, but it's just it's the same show, right? It's and it's I don't know what this says about me, because it just wasn't surprising to me anymore.
Yeah, but that's what an audience is. When you build an audience as any type of like performer, speaker, whatever, it has the same brain trust. That's what you do when you build an audience, especially like as a comic.
But when you say build an audience, as opposed to what he's done here is unite an audience. He's turned them from thousands into one.
Correct.
Which is a comedian tries to do.
Yes, but that's right. And so in our language, that's building your audience. So it makes sense to me that everyone's the same brain trust and everything would have the same feeling. It doesn't matter where in the country you are at that point. Once you're in that arena, it all looks exactly the same. And that speaking to that is like, okay, first off, Eric Trump had zero confidence as a public speaker. Wow. It sounded like
he should take your class.
He should actually. He'll be opening for Ahmed Hairlines. No, it just felt like anyone got up and could have said anything, and that's the whole point. Is Dean, speaking of what you said, is like he could have said anything and that audience would have just eaten that up and then thrown the chant around.
So when you were there,
let me give you an example of this.
In 2016, I'm going to ask you if it's changed.
So one of the questions I always got after covering the Trump campaign was, did you know Trump was going to win? And the answer, of course, was no, because none of us, even Trump, didn't think he was going to win. However, there was a moment in 2015 where I realized, oh, maybe I should have seen this coming. And it was December, I want to say it was December 2015. We're in South Carolina on a battleship called the USS Yorktown in a suburb of Charleston. And that's
December
the day.
7th.
December 7th. Oh, yes.
December
I'm sorry.
7th, the Muslim band.
Yeah. He sends out a statement that day saying, I want to ban all Muslims from coming into this country. And this is earlier in the day. And we all are just shocked. And the entire day.
So happy. Look how happy Kevin is. Just
I said Jesus just in case anyone's listening.
Kevin just got in a little daze. He was looking longingly at what the world would look like.
I thought
He'd
it
be
was
hosting the
Jesus.
show,
Now
but-
I'm a Jew. I don't know what to believe
Right.
anymore.
Well, so all day he's getting hit by both sides of the aisle, and Republicans are saying, "Oh my God, that's you can't do that. It's ignorance, it's racist, and all of this stuff." So all day we're all thinking, "Well, how's he going to handle this?" Well, we all think he's going to come out and say, "The dishonest media misinterpreted my statement. I didn't mean keep all Muslims out. I meant keep the terrorists out, or whatever, some semblance of that, right?" He's on this battleship in front of like maybe 2,000, 1,500 people, whatever. And he starts his rally off, and he takes out a piece of paper and he reads the statement word for word. We're going to, complete and total shutdown until we figure out what the hell is going on of Muslims coming into the country. And he got a extended standing ovation from everybody on that boat. And it was the first time I was like, "Oh, this is something I do not recognize."
And that was the first time you were thrown off a boat, right? Brown guy. Let's begin the ban here.
In addition to that, we talked to a lot of people in the crowd. I talked to a lot of people in the crowd that night, and not one person was like, "Oh, it's a Muslim man. That's not a bad idea."
65% of GOP primary voters supported a total complete shutdown.
Yeah, and then he won. His poll numbers went up, and he actually won the South Carolina primary after that. And that was the moment where I was like, "Oh, he can say and anything, and he's going to get cheers."
But were people look? If you see last night's rally, they were dressed. Almost everyone. You see more red hats and more red shirts now than I've ever seen.
I just saw a couple black hats too. Black "Make America Great" hats. I saw that.
They're all kinds of colors now.
Yeah,
Man.
like
so
it's
they have all that.
weird.
But was that the same?
It's like, are they're like Gucci make America great?
But in 2015, 2016, were people as much in the audience dressed, or they were there just to see him, or they were there to be part of the Trump world, like Trump cult? They were there for that? Like they were dressed up, they were wearing the hats, the whole thing?
Oh, dressed up, the hat. Forget the hat. That's not even the most interesting part. Like they would show up. Like first of all, a number would show up the night before and then camp out the night before to get good seats. God. Sometimes they'd show up dressed as him. One time I remember being in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina for a Trump rally, and a guy shows up dressed as him, like, complete with the hair and the suit and whatnot, and Trump brings him on stage and says, "Hey, you're dressed as me. Is your wife here?" And the guy goes,
no.
yeah, my wife's here. "Oh, where is she?" "Oh, yeah, she's right there." And he goes, "Wow, she probably fantasizes about me."
Oh.
It was so weird.
Jesus.
And the crowd went crazy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And what did Bob DeBono say back to him?
Let's take a
man,
break.
that's a niche reference, my friend.
know.
Let's take
That's
a break.
a niche
I
reference.
love Bob.
Okay, let's focus for a second. We're going to take a commercial break. We're going to come back. We're talking about
Sirius XM Progress 127.
You're listening to What Just Happened with everyone's favorite host, Dean Obidala.
I am Dean's favorite host. That's right. Welcome back, Dean Obidala's show. We're live Friday, October 11th. What just happened? We're here with Alex Berg, Sopan Dead, and Kevin Dombrowski. Well, quick thing here, just get your guys' reaction. So Senator Lindsey Graham got pranked twice by guys pretending to be the Turkish, Secretary of War, I imagine at this point. I mean, that's what it is. But I got to play. So I want to play the first 30 seconds of it. This is the real audio of it. And how could anyone be fooled by this? How does it not jump out at you as being something really wildly wrong? And I'll repeat. He took the call once, and then a week or so later, took it again. Here's clip number 6. Listen to the
Minister Lindsey Graham, hello.
Oh, good day, Mr. Senator.
There's no way this is
well,
Thank
I really
you.
appreciate you calling me. Thank you for calling me.
Me too. Thank you for taking the time to have such an important conversation.
Yes, I want to make this a win-win if we can.
So, I know that you have already held the talks with my colleague, the foreign minister.
Yeah, foreign minister. Yes.
Yes. And therefore, I would like to talk to you through my ministry. And
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So that's completely it. I'm not making that up. That wasn't. And how do those guys not sound Russian? Because they are Russian. Their name is Lexus and Vovan. That's their stage names. They're actually tied apparently to Russian intelligence. It's not kidding. And that's the worst Turkish accent. That's like a Russian guy going, and then I must break you. It's like, what? Did you just Dolph Lundgren? So, Alex, when you heard that, did it just sound like a comedy thing?
It did, but I was immediately so disturbed because I was like, how did this happen? And what information is Lindsey Graham giving away because he can't discern between a prank phone call and a real person?
He's a chairman of a powerful Senate committee, of the Judiciary Committee.
I'm going to take the opposite tact here.
Okay. Go ahead, Sopan.
I think that I'm surprised this doesn't happen more often. Huh. I mean, all four of us in this room could get easily pranked. It just, I'm sorry, it's true. I mean, if a Turkish or Russian or whatever,
Sopan, I'm glad we could talk again.
I'm sorry.
I want a win-win.
Hold on, it seems foolish, but could I differentiate various Middle Eastern accents or various ethnic? I'm sorry. In the snap of a moment, I don't think I could. I just don't think it's that big of a deal that he got pranked like that.
Well, let's
go ahead, Kevin.
Let's say, Dean, I think you have a phone call on line 1.
Have you ever pranked anyone? Have you ever done
hello, is this Dean Obidala show?
Oh my God, the Secretary of War from Turkey. How's the war going, Secretary?
It's good. Quick question: is refrigerator running?
Oh, that's right.
I just don't think that. Look, it's a prank call. You know what I mean? I'm surprised it doesn't happen more often.
But in the substantive thing, in the phone call, he talked to the guy thinking it was really a Turkish minister and saying there's a Kurdish problem over there, and you got your Kurdish problem is a big problem. And meanwhile, now he's slamming Trump left and right for abandoning the Kurds. So it's kind of interesting that that's the substantive takeaway from this. The funny part is you got pranked. It's his staffers who got pranked. It's not like he's some staffer got yelled at, I'm sure, or something for something like that.
Yeah, I mean, of
have
course.
Any of you guys ever done a prank phone call to anyone, a real prank?
Of course.
Yeah,
I used to do
it's
it.
an American. Are you American? We're all American, you know?
I actually distinctly remember in high school there was some program where you could actually prank call 2 people and connect them. So that then you could listen in. Okay. So then you could actually listen to them thinking that the other one had called them.
Yeah,
and that was my
they're the famous
one
where it was a pizza delivery guy, a pizza place and another pizza place.
That was Stern.
Was that Stern?
And he connected them.
Oh.
And they were both like, okay, 10 minutes. Okay, 10 minutes. And they just kept going back and forth.
That's really funny.
I actually used to do prank calls for Clear Channel Radio.
You did?
Yeah, when I was in high school.
Did you? I'm sure your parents were very proud.
Well, I called my father.
Did you do an accent or anything? Did you do it in yourself?
I did like an old man because my dad was a cop, so I called.
Oh wow, great! I'm sure he was very proud.
I called the police department and I was like, "Hello, I've got a cat stuck in a tree and I need someone to help me." My own father.
So, did you call 911 for this?
I called his like the desk. I knew the number of the desk.
Isn't that 911?
No.
He called his desk number.
No, there's like another number that you can call.
It's 922.
Exactly. I think it's actually 311. And I said, "Where have you been, Dad?" I prank called him. And he had no idea it was me, which is ironic because if you heard my voice in reality, he would have no idea it's me either.
I haven't talked to your father in 20 years. This is just the first time you were connected.
Did either of you guys ever use those soundboards that were on the internet? Like you
change your voice?
No. It would be like a celebrity. It would be
like sound effects.
Gary. It would be like Gary Busey, and it would be a bunch of his catchphrases, and you call him up, put the phone to the speaker, and be like, and you'd hit one of the Gary Busey.
Who is your daddy, and what does he do?
Yeah, it was the Arnold one was the famous one.
There's a Pacino one. There was Pacino stuff with my friend. When I worked at SNL, they would do that. What was that? You guys hear that? That was my thing.
I think that was a name drop.
I had a friend.
That's actually
my friend. When I worked at this little show called Saturday Night Live, when I was. Running the whole thing.
Dean, how many times a week do you drop the SNL name?
Yeah, really.
That and being a lawyer, like every 4 minutes, I do that. My one.
Wait till they pull up your old episodes.
My friend would do prank calls, and in the favorite line, he'd call up and he'd go, "There's a dozen eggs outside of your house," and they go, "Who's this?" And he'd go, "The chicken." And I hang up.
I'm surprised that didn't make Weekend Update.
I didn't write that. I know it's funny. My friend would do that.
Is it bad that I find that really funny?
I think it is funny. No, it's the silliest thing.
Poor Alex is never going to come on the show again.
Hey,
Alex is like, wait, how did I get whipped into this?
Matt's laughing. It's funny. There's some guy going, "There's a dozen eggs inside of your house." Who is this? The chicken.
Alex thought she was going to be talking about like serious politics. It's like, oh, poor
there we go. Show's over. All right, let's talk.
I'm going to call you next week. Knock, knock. Who's there? Muslim. Muslim who? Muslim Ben. Hello, are you there? Dean?
All right, you're an idiot. So let's... Sopan, you write for the Gray Lady, right? Is that
Thank
her
you.
name?
Yes.
The New York Times.
Yes.
The paper of
Thank
record.
you.
The one that Donald Trump fawns over and desires so much to be praised in. You wrote a great article about this whole NBA stuff. So you take us the lead here. Tell us a little bit about what happened with the NBA in China.
So last Friday night, Daryl Morey, who is the general manager of the Houston Rockets, sent out a tweet that expressed support for the pro-democracy protesters in Hong Kong, and that did not go over well in China. And it set off a big controversy because this is a very sensitive topic in China. So several Chinese companies started cutting ties with the NBA. Chinese state-run media. The timing was especially awkward because there are 2 games this week between the Lakers and the Nets that are supposed to take place in China.
In China. So I don't even think people know. I didn't know. I don't follow NBA too closely.
So one game took place yesterday. One game is supposed to take place tomorrow morning.
It's in Beijing, right?
One is Shanghai, and I think it might be. I don't want to say the wrong thing.
Just make
here.
up any city.
We're not gonna know. The first one was Shanghai.
It's the only one I know. That's why I said that.
I think it is Beijing, but I don't hold me to that. It was it's an interesting story because it brings in all kinds of different tentacles, right? It brings in sports, it brings in politics because all these presidential candidates and all these lawmakers here domestically.
Beto got involved in
it. I mean Ted Cruz invited Adam Silver to testify and all this stuff, and then it also involves like foreign policy and geopolitics, and very rarely do you see a Venn diagram that involves all of those stories, and it's an uncomfortable position for the NBA, who is essentially, they like to brand themselves as this progressive league. Meanwhile, they're a corporation just like anything else is a corporation. So now they're in this uncomfortable position of having to, talk about China's, protests and how they talk about free speech. And what was interesting is the Chinese state-run media, the TV network, essentially said, free speech isn't right when it criticizes the state, and so the NBA is in this position of having to handle that. So it's a very unusual story. I've never seen anything.
Well, is like global industry getting involved too in terms of like Nike brand or like anything?
Well, Nike, Reuters reported today that Nike pulled all their Houston Rockets merchandise from the China store, and so look, I think it's a strange thing when corporations are looked to as moral leaders. I mean, at the end of the day, any corporation is looking to make money. I mean, right? And the China market is worth billions of dollars for the NBA. So it's a complicated place to be.
That's what it comes down to. It's the concerns of a multinational corporation on some level, even though they're a basketball league.
But what's crazy to me about this story is that just yesterday, Apple pulled an app.
Yes.
From their store because the Chinese government complained because they claimed it was assisting the Hong Kong protesters, and people were have you guys heard about? Has Ted Cruz and AOC and all these lawmakers that have jumped on their high horse about the NBA, like that is not something that they're talking about. So in some ways it's almost easier to jump on the NBA, because it's kind of a black and white issue. But the fact of the matter is, like, several American companies do business in China, knowing what their human rights record is, knowing what this free speech record is there. So I think and look, the same politicians, especially on the right, that were going after the NBA. Donald Trump has not said that much about the Hong Kong protesters. He himself has not been particularly outspoken about that.
He's been on the side of the Chinese government in the tweets he did in the past.
And just to clarify here, did the NBA handle this well? I mean, I think even if you got Adam Silver in this room right now and gave him truth serum, I think he would.
And he's the commissioner.
Well, he also said that he supports anyone's right to free expression.
That came 2 or 3 days after the initial response.
Okay,
but that the initial response was roundly condemned, and then I think the NBA got such blowback from that they did a press conference on Tuesday, so that's 3 days ago, and they released a new statement saying, "Look, we're going to stand behind the general manager, who's named Daryl Morey." And that is that, and so the Chinese state media actually said they wouldn't broadcast the game, not because of Daryl Morey's comment, but because Adam Silver stood up for free speech.
Got it.
And so, it's a really fascinating story on many different levels.
It is. Alex, any reaction to it? Because we're going to come back, take a break, and have you talk about the Supreme Court case.
I mean, all I'll say is, like, I am not somebody who pays a lot of attention to sports, and this was just fascinating and compelling to me because it was like, again, just that intersection of like cultural issues and then also corporations and sports.
And they had a weird moment where the CNN reporter asked, was it hard way?
Yeah.
Here's a quick clip. This is a quick clip. Here's clip number 5, please, Matt.
Hi, Christina McFarlane, CNN. The NBA has always been a league that prides itself on its player and its coaches being able to speak out openly about political and societal affairs. I just wonder, after the events of this week and the fallout we've seen, whether you would both feel differently about speaking out in that way in future.
Excuse me, we'll take the basketball questions only.
It's a legitimate question. This is an event that's happened this week during the NBA.
It's been answered. We're taking the basketball.
This particular question has not been answered. James.
Any other questions?
Nope. So if you couldn't hear
there's a CNN reporter that
the CNN, right, and there was an NBA spokesperson.
It was a team spokesperson.
Oh, team. So
it wasn't a league. What's interesting about that particular situation is that when Daryl Morey sent out the initial tweet that set off this whole thing, the loudest voice that first publicly rebuked him wasn't, a politician. It was his own boss. It was Tillman Fertitta, who is the owner of the Houston Rockets, who is worth many $billions. He purchased the Rockets for more than $2 billion.
Well, also Yao Ming got involved too.
Yeah,
because
he hasn't said anything publicly, but he runs what is known as the Chinese Basketball Association. And the CBA announced shortly after that they would cut off cooperation with the Rockets. And Yao Ming hasn't spoken himself publicly, but he runs the CBA. CBA is run by the Chinese state government, so it's who knows how much freedom Yao Ming really has to speak openly about this. But Adam Silver said at a press conference earlier this week that Yao Ming is really angry about what happened here.
Right.
But
now he's in a work camp someplace. He was angry.
He's making Nike shoes again.
He's not. It's interesting to see how Trump is silent in this situation, because he's negotiating with the Chinese
well, he
right
wasn't
now.
Silent,
literally,
though. He wasn't silent. He spoke up this week, except he didn't talk about China. He went after Steve Kerr and Greg Popovich, two NBA coaches. He called Steve Kerr a little boy. He went after. He did
because he would not criticize China because he's in the midst of negotiations.
And so instead, but at the same time, he essentially called them cowards for not speaking up against China. At the same time, he himself wouldn't talk about Hong Kong. So that was a very interesting reaction.
Well, he's trying to make a deal for. All right, let's take a quick break. We'll come right back with more of the Dino Bidala Show. So we'll come back and talk about the argument. Essentially, I mean, we covered.
listening to What Just Happened with everyone's favorite host, Dino Vidala.
And welcome back to the Dino Vidala Show. Oh, these guys are laughing up a storm. Sopan and Kevin are just... Kevin, phone call the chicken. For you. So, Alex.
I think you get another phone call, Dean.
Here it goes. Prank call. It was so funny. Like, ring like during the show. Hang on, Dean.
when I was in Warsaw.
Alex, this week there was a big Supreme Court oral argument on a case that deals with simply equality and expanding the Civil Rights Act. Tell us a little bit about the case.
So it's actually about 3 different cases, 3 different plaintiffs who are all fired from their jobs for being LGBTQ in some capacity. And really what it does is it'll determine if it's lawful to fire someone for being LGBTQ under Title VII of the 1964 Civil Rights Act. But so essentially, like, the idea that it's getting at is, can you fire someone for being LGBTQ? And we can get into some of the nitty gritty about how lawmakers then were interpreting sex versus gender identity and sexual orientation. But the bigger thing is that it really gets at the idea of LGBTQ people if we get the same dignity as everyone else. Because how can you exist if you can't hold down a job? And how can you be a dignified person if you have to go into your job every single day and worry if you're going to be fired on the grounds of simply being who you are?
Right.
And
Can I ask
really,
a question?
yeah.
Does the Colorado Baker decision, does that set any sort of precedent for this?
No, not that I mean,
that's about service. This is about fundamental
that's what
rights
I mean.
you have
Yeah.
as a person.
Okay.
No.
Yeah, and so I am no legal scholar, but I can certainly talk about like the
Kevin
impact and how it feels. Okay. Oh, great. Thanks. You can answer all my questions.
Kevin's very good.
It was just a segue for Dean to say he was a lawyer.
Eastern European law. He's an expert on Eastern European law.
Anyway, I'm sorry.
I interrupted you. No. But so it gets at this question: can you be fired? But also it's not just about work, right? Because it's really about cutting LGBTQ people out of public life. Because certainly, depending how this decision comes down, if your employer can fire you for being LGBTQ, then that discrimination would likely end up extending to other places like your healthcare or your housing. And how can you participate in our society and culture if you can't work?
You know, there in a majority of states in this country right now, you can be fired for being gay,
absolutely,
and for being transgender American. They can just fire you and say get out, and they can tell you that's the reason we're firing you. In fact, it doesn't even matter. Like they can use that as they can just say it. Not that's it. We don't like gay people. You're gone. Type of thing. It's unbelievable that this legal argument about the Civil Rights Act is a nuanced legal discussion, but simply about fellow Americans being treated equally is really the issue for me. And that's what it's got to be. We have to get to this point where everyone has the same rights in this country.
It's also also my partner, the gender of my partner has absolutely no bearing on how you should feel about how you're doing your job and how I'm doing my job. So there is this like really personal part of this that is very policing, but also something that everybody should be worried about is this would essentially allow anyone's employer to police their gender. So anybody who their employer doesn't feel like they're performing masculinity or femininity in the right way, they're all at risk too.
Well, it's so weird because like that should file under the entire movement that we're making as a country of like sexuality or like let's say sexual content does not belong in the workplace. It just doesn't. And that's where the whole women movement and the Me Too movement came out of. And it's like, why is that just not across the board? Why do we give a shit about, if we don't want to care about this one side of the spectrum, then we should not want to care about every end of the spectrum.
I mean, part of it, sadly enough, are people who say it's about their Christian faith, who will say, I've got to discriminate against people and treat them horribly, but they'll do it under the prism of, it's liberty. My religious freedom means I can discriminate against people because of their sexual orientation or their gender identity, which is outrageous. It should not be allowed in America. I think it's unconstitutional. Just having any laws based on religious faith, we should not have that. The First Amendment
I mean,
says
there's supposed to be separation of church and state. That's like,
talk to the people who want Christian Sharia law.
Right. It's so crazy. And it's like the whole, like, I started talking about it in my act, like the straight pride parade is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. If you don't know what the straight pride parade is, it's what the other 96% of America calls walking down the street. It's the most absurd thing that you can
do. Or like,
do.
welcome to my life on Halloween. Right. It's like, come on, y'all. Like,
All right, let's take another quick break. We'll come back the last couple of minutes here of the Dean Obeidallah Show.
Dean Obeidallah Show on Sirius XM Progress 127.
Your entire week's exhausting news broken down in one hilarious hour. What Just Happened is now live with Dean Obeidallah.
And welcome back to the Dean Obeidallah Show. I can't hear myself, so it just sounds weird. Who knows? Maybe it's the microphone's out. So we're here with our friends Alex, Kevin, and Sopan. Where can people, we only got about 2 minutes left, where can people follow you on Twitter, your show, AMDM?
Yes, so I'm at It's Alex Berg on Twitter, and you can watch the show at AM2DM, like the number 2, every single day, 10 a.m. to 11.
10 to 11 every day, 5 days a week. People can see it on Twitter as well afterward. Like you post a lot of clips.
Yes, we do. We post a ton of clips. Yeah.
Kevin Dombrowski?
Hi. I'll be at Dangerfield's Comedy Club. I'm doing I'm doing this on Instagram right now because I didn't promote the show accidentally. Dangerfield's Comedy Club, 8:30 tonight. Which,
no, it's 8:58, so you missed your spot.
It's a 9:20. I'm good.
Sorry.
I'll be on time. And then at Kevin Dombrowski on Twitter, Instagram, and all that other stuff.
Sopan, please save us.
Can I play my book?
Sure,
a book coming out in April,
Sure.
memoir called Mistranslations, Me and the Immigrant Parents Who Raised Me, through HarperCollins, and you can follow me on Twitter at SopanDeb, SOPANDEB.
And of course, I'm Dean Obeidallah, the needy MBFF. I'm there for you all weekend at Dean Obeidallah, Facebook.com/Dean of Radio, or drop me an email. I'm around all weekend, Dean at deanofradio.com. That's DEAN at deanofradio.com. And here's Kevin Dombrowski's home phone number. Please call him.
Lawyer at SNL.com.
That's right.
Guys, you can find Dean.
You guys, thanks for coming in. Matt, thanks for this
Thank
week.
you.
Everyone, thanks for tuning in. Look forward to chatting with you. Have a good weekend. Be back Monday right here on the Dean Obeidallah Show.